So what we're going to take a look at now is using that async pipe I was talking about earlier instead of doing this every time we want to subscribe to an observable. And another thing about what we're doing here is we are subscribing to this current user, but this current user is not an HTTP request. This never completes. So we've got potential here for memory leaks, and whilst this particular isn't going to cause us any major memory leak, it's not good practice to subscribe to something like this and then just not unsubscribe to it. So what we can do is take advantage of the async pipe to adjust that. Now what we could do is add a property inside here. Instead of the logged in method, what we could do is say current user $, and we could say that this is an observable of type user. And then instead of using the get current user method we've got here, what we could do in our ng on init is we could say list.currentUser equals list.accountService.currentUser. And we've got rid of our logged in boolean now, so we can remove this code from in our login method and our logout method, and also we don't need this get current user method anymore because we're getting it directly from the account service. So let's see how we use this in our template. And what we can do, we can go to our nav component, and everywhere that we see our ngIf logged in, what we can do instead is say, do we have that current user object? So we can say current user and then async. And we can do the same for the drop down here. We can say current user and async. And then we can do for the not logged in is say not current user async. And let's go and check to make sure that this is still working. So we go back to our browser and let's just refresh the page, and that looks good. If I log out, then we see the user object disappearing. I'm not seeing the form though, so I've obviously got something wrong there. And the problem is that we can't use the not operator like this, as it doesn't work. So what we have to do is surround this in parentheses, and then what we want to do is check to see if the current user is equal to null. So we remove the not operator, and then we just use the 3 equals to see if we're equal to null instead of using the not operator here. And if we go back, take a look, well, we can see our form again. If we refresh the page, we're not seeing any errors, and if we log in as Bob with the password, then okay, that looks good. We can see our user object being populated there. If we refresh the page, everything's fine, and we're now using the async pipe. We can still go a step further though, because if we take a look at our nav components, what we have inside here is unnecessary code. We don't particularly need to have the current user as a class property inside here because the account service has already got this as a property. So let's remove the current user from there. Let's also remove list.currentUser from here as well. And then what we can do, if we want to access a service inside our template, then we need to make this public. If I try and access the service inside here, and let's go up to the first current user, and if I try and get the account service, I'm not getting anything. And that's because we need to make this public, because private means that even though that's our template, we can only use this account service at the moment inside this component. If we want to use it inside our template, we need to make it public, and then we can go to our nav component and we can say account service.currentUser and then the async pipe. And then we can do the same thing for this one as well. We'll say account service.currentUser, and then we can do the same inside here as well, and we'll say account service and current user. And what we should find now is that everything still works, and we can refresh the page and we persist our login. We can log out and our user object disappears. We can log in again with the password and we're back to where we were, and we can refresh the page and everything's working. Let's just, while I've got it in my line of sight, I'm also just going to remove this logout link, which we don't need anymore because now we've got the functionality to use the drop down to actually log out. And what we've also achieved by using this async pipe, remember, is that we automatically unsubscribe if our nav component is no longer visible or in use. It doesn't really work for an app component thinking about it, because this is always going to be visible in our app. But it's a good example of using the async pipe anyway. What we'll take a look at next is adding another component to our app, and we'll add a home component, a home page, if you will, to our application.